We've entered the final stretch. Aang awakens on an enemy ship with a brand new look, that look being horrible post-lightning stress disorder and a new hairdo. Turns out actually it's not an enemy ship, it's a friendly ship, and it's fooled the Fire Nation until now, but somehow Hakoda and Bato blow their cover in 25 seconds flat. They fight their way out of the situation with the help of the local sea life on some Aquaman type shit. Aang's upset that he got snuck by Zuko's sister and that the entire world is basically fucked now, a pretty reasonable thing to be upset about. He has an emotional moment and runs away, but the gang catches up and says they're pretty sure they can unfuck the world with a little elbow grease and a good attitude. So how the fuck are we gonna do that? Forget it, let's teach some kids to dance. Aang causes a ruckus at school and is immediately seen as the coolest kid in class, even though he makes himself look like a social pariah more than once. He does beat up the bully though, so he probably scores some points there. Aang's fancy dance party is going pretty well until the feds bust in with a noise complaint. Aang knows that he's got a warrant out for him, as well as countless priors, so he leaves his classmates to take the heat for the illegal underground dancing ring. Then the gang decides it would be a good idea to have Appa swim in a river. This results in them noticing the river is polluted, and by polluted, I mean it's not even water anymore, it's just this weird colored sludge. Katara takes it upon herself to help the river-based village by masquerading as their local religious symbol, which is some pretty dicey territory. I don't know if you should be doing that in this political climate, Katara. Religious heretic tendencies quickly evolve into economic terrorist actions, as they so often do, and Katara blows up the factory that's polluting the river. This, of course, backfires immediately as the village is attacked, but the gang saves the day by playing more make-believe water goddess. Then Sokka's having a hard time. He's sick of feeling useless in the face of his incredible friends. All he can do is swing a club around, so he's pretty bummed, until he gets the idea to swing a sword around instead, which really fires him up. He worms his way into studying under the master Piandao, who is both a stand-up guy and a laid-back dude. Sokka studies for 2 days and is so nuts at thinking outside the box, Piandao says that he's the greatest pupil he's ever trained, but has one more trick up his sleeve with a surprise exam after Sokka reveals his Antarctic origins. Sokka does well enough to not be cleaved in twain, so Piandao says, hey, great job, and gives Sokka some more motivational departing words. Oh yeah, did I mention that Iroh gets fucking shredded in prison? Let's go! Next up, it's time to check into the bad guys. They go to hang out at the beach, and after nearly turning the volleyball court into a glass floor, they're invited to a party because they go so fucking hard. It turns out they all suck though, except Ty Lee, who's a social butterfly. Zuko's too touchy, Mei is too blasé, and Zuko's sister is just a fucking train wreck, man. Meanwhile, the gang is attacked by a man that can shoot explosions out of his face. After a short scuffle, they get away, but are reasonably shaken up. Back with the Black Parade now, we're having a chat around the fire where everyone gets to air out their grievances. It all comes to a head with Zuko literally saying he doesn't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy anymore, but for some reason no one presses the subject. They end the night by trashing the party of the people that were absolutely in the right the whole time. Now Roku's spirit kidnaps Aang for a day to give him a crash course on how the war started and his relationship with the previous Fire Lord, who was almost named Susan. They were tight when they were kids and even as young adults, but Susan's political views shifted and he started posting some pretty messed up shit on Facebook, so Roku removed him as a friend. Later on though, Susan comes back to help Roku stop a pair of volcanoes from exploding, but he pulls a psych that will echo throughout the annals of time and he leaves his old bestie for dead. Zuko is also reading the story in tandem with Aang and Roku and confronts Iroh about it, but Iroh blows Zuko's mind out the back of his fucking head after he says Roku was Zuko's great-grandpa. Then it's the Toph episode. Toph gets addicted to the feeling of freedom she feels when she cheats people out of their money. Katara is understandably worried about both the psychological implications and the potential consequences this could bring upon the group. After a small fight and an emotional talk with Sokka, Toph and Katara find a way to come to an agreement. And that agreement is, fuck it, let's double down on the scams. Unfortunately, they play right into the hands of Mr. Brain Gun and get caught. They bust out though and manage to slither away to scam another day. We rejoin the gang as they meet a creepy old lady in the woods. She leads them back to a town that's been having problems with people going missing on the nights of full moons. The gang figures this kind of problem is squarely in their wheelhouse at this point, so they try to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, Katara hangs out with Hama, who it actually turns out is from their hometown and is an ex-war prisoner, but above all else, it's a pretty nasty waterbender. Hama leads Katara into the woods during a full moon, and it turns out that both plot lines are tied together, and it's Hama who's stealing people away during the full moons. Incredible! Hama figured out people bending years ago and wants Katara to do it too, so much so that she bends Sokka to kill Aang, so Katara is forced to people bend Hama. Damn, that was fucked up. Then there's an episode where Aang can't sleep because he's stressed out about fighting the completely helpless and depowered Fire Lord that he could easily immobilize instantly, capture and win the war. His dreams get increasingly crazy, but the gang says they reckon he could do it no problem, so Aang chills out and gets some rest. It's invasion day. We're going to war. First though, Aang kisses Katara because he figures he can't kiss a girl if he's dead. The gang and their ragtag group of allies rock up with the Fire Nation with a good plan and a bad attitude. At the same time, seems like Zuko's gearing up to do something important, but it's not clear what yet. Hakoda gets injured during the battle, so Sokka takes the de facto role as head motherfucker what's in charge. Aang struts into the throne room, ready to collect some Fire Lord ass and politely hand it back to him, but he's nowhere to be found. Aang relays this info to the squad, and they figure they can find him with a bit of effort, so they go through a bunch of video game levels, only to find Ozai isn't the end boss, it's Zuko's sister. What the fuck, we've been had. Zuko's sister and her earthbending cronies give him a pretty good run, and by run, I mean it was all a time-wasting tactic to stall at the eclipse. While this is happening, Zuko's having a heart-to-heart with Dad. Ozai's pretty heartless though, so it's a one-sided conversation. Zuko has just now realized that it's wildly messed up that his dad tried to blow half his face off, so he says, I'm over this whole Fire Nation thing, I'm on Team Avatar now. Ozai doesn't take this well and immediately tries to kill Zuko, but Zuko catches it and throws it back. Knew that shit would come in handy. Back with the gang, they're trying to escape, but the enemy blows up their getaway car. Shit. All the child soldiers escape on Appa, but the adult soldiers stay and hold the L. The gang hole up at the Western Air Temple to lick their wounds and lament their new situation of having to beat Ozai before the comet again, meaning Aang needs a firebending teacher. It's gonna be impossible to find one of those. Suddenly a firebending teacher arrives in Zuko. Great timing. The gang understandably tells him to go to hell considering his past actions. Zuko makes a pretty good 35th impression though, as he distracts Bomberman for like 10 seconds before he blows himself himself up. The gang says, alright, that probably makes up for all the messed up stuff you did. You're in the group now, except Katara, she's pissed. So Aang's gotta learn firebending, and Zuko's pretty keen to teach him, but now Zuko can't firebend either, so we're back to square one, and everyone's pretty miffed. Zuko gets the idea to go learn from a dead civilization, I guess like from rock carvings or something. Turns out the dead civilization is alive, and they're turbo pissed that Zuko's great-granddad killed all the dragons, and Aang let him do it. So they make them stand in front of the last two dragons to see what they think about it. Aang and Zuko do an honestly visually stunning dance in tandem with them, so the big lizards figure they're alright, I guess, so they unlock their firebending third eye, and now they're more nuts at firebending than ever. Next, Sokka's back on a sad boy shit. He feels bad about letting his dad get captured. He ascertains his possible location from Zuko and tries to sneak off, but Zuko insists on coming along, so now we're on a buddy-buddy prison break mission. They somehow get into the prison, still not clear on that, but quickly find Hakoda isn't there. But Suki is, that's also good. They gather her up and come up with a pretty ingenious escape plan, but overhear the fact that some war prisoners are inbound. Sokka second guesses the plan and the chance that his dad could show up, so they decide to stay, and the gamble pays off as Hakoda does arrive. Now we've got to come up with a whole new plan, and that's kidnap the warden so no one can kill us without killing him too. Everyone agrees that's pretty smart. They barge their way onto the gondola, but Zuko's sister and her team are here too, pissed that Zuko cinematically betrayed them at the moment of truth. It's looking pretty grim for the gang, but May clutches up and betrays Zuko's sister cinematically at the moment of truth and enables their getaway. Zuko's sister consigns May to death by lightning, but then Ty Lee cinematically betrays her at the moment of truth. Next, Zuko's sister totally ruins their new pad, so it's back to camping and back to Katara being mad at the Fire Nation in general for killing her mom. She's also mad at Zuko for cinematically betraying her at the moment of truth, so Zuko says, okay, I can't fix one of those things, but I might be able to help with the other. They go on an actual murder mission. They are out for blood. After nearly killing the wrong guy by people bending him into chunks, they find the real killer. Katara can't bring herself to do it though, and is simultaneously relieved and disappointed in herself. Then the gang goes to a play about themselves that recaps the entire show very quickly, but that's what I'm doing, so I'm gonna go super fast for this episode. They all hate the play because it makes them look like idiots and it points out their flaws. Oh, and it says they're all gonna burn to death too. Susan's comet is right around the corner, and apparently the gang decided they're gonna fight Ozai at a later date. Zuko says, no, we can't do that because Dad's gonna burn down the planet. The whole gang is like, man, what the fuck? But Aang is especially thrown because he doesn't want to kill anyone. He's a nice little boy, pure as the driven snow. He gets entranced by an island that wasn't there a second ago and wakes up in the middle of the ocean, and the gang is less than relaxed about his sudden absence. The gang can't find Aang, so they enlist the help of June and her big monster thing to go find Iroh, but halfway there they're cut off by the Order of the White Lotus, who's comprised of all the old people we met in the show. They bring the gang to Iroh, and he and Zuko emotionally reunite after Iroh reveals that he's fine that he was cinematically betrayed at the moment of truth. While that's happening, Aang is being counseled by his past lives, and they all say he doesn't have to kill Ozai, but the vibe is definitely leaning towards it. Then Aang meets a turtle that gives him nondescript magical powers. Meanwhile, Zuko's sister is going fucking insane. It's fight night. Azula versus Azula's brother, Aang versus Ozai, and Sokka versus a bunch of blimps. Zuko seems to have his sister on the back foot for the first time, but she pulls some shady shit and tries to kill Katara. Zuko blocks it and takes it pretty much head on, and all is looking pretty grim. Back with Sokka, the airship slice is going surprisingly well. Look at that fucking line he takes, but Zuko gets separated from them, and suddenly all is looking grim. The other battle, Aang versus Ozai. Aang is constantly on the run. He couldn't buy a hit to get in. He gets trapped in a rock, and all is looking grim. Now suddenly it's Katara versus Crazy Legs over here. Zuko's sister definitely has the upper hand, but is thoroughly defeated when Katara freezes them both and ties her up. Too easy for guys like her, honestly. Sokka, on the other hand, is dead to rights. He's dead as hell, but Suki comes back and saves the day right out from under them. Finally, Aang hits his back right where Zuko's sister blasted him, which unblocks his chakra and unlocks a big fucking problem for Ozai. Aang chases the Fire Lord down like a dog and announces he's gonna turn Ozai into something that might vaguely resemble a human body afterwards, but stops short, unable to do it. He decides to use the nondescript turtle powers, which have recently gotten a description update, and it reads, you can steal people's bending, Lamau. He chooses who bends. He does that and the world is saved. Zuko's crowned the Fire Lord the next day and promises to fix the mistakes of his forefathers. We rejoin the gang for the final time, chilling in Iroh's tea shop. Everyone's happy and the war's over. Katara and Aang kiss and the show ends. Here are the patrons again. I still love all of them.